cell phone's telling me it's already past 9:30. So, welcome to the Local Agency Formation Commission meeting on March 19th, 2014. Start the meeting off this morning with our roll call.
Commissioners Ed Roby.
I'm here.
Frank Gillespie.
Here.
Denise Lucero. Here. Stacy Martina. Here. Jerry Mills.
Here.
Denise Rushing. Jim Comstock.
Here.
Jeff Smith.
Here.
Martin Steele. Jim Aikman. Suzanne Lyons. Here.
Okay. Thank you. Next item is the approval of the minutes of the January 15th meeting. Does anyone have any additions or corrections? Any issues with the minutes? If not, I'd ask for a
Mr.
motion
Chair.
to approve. Oh, that's
Yes, I'd like to say that the description of the conversation about committees and so forth really can't be adequate in the minutes of a meeting like this, but if you look at the YouTube, there is a recorded video of that, and it's really well worth looking into because there's a lot of concerns and considerations. I watched it a couple times. I very much appreciate the fact that you have given us this opportunity to participate in, and we realize that it's very difficult to engage the public in that, so thank you. I just wanted, and I'd like that to be in your minutes, the next minutes, please.
You want it in the minutes of
Yes.
this meeting?
This comment I just made.
The comment
Please.
you just made.
Please, yes.
Thank you, Liz. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I had a question. It's on page 2 of your packet in the minutes, and it says, it's the 1, 2, 4th paragraph from the bottom. It says the issue is why should the county subsidize the city's sphere? And I didn't know if that was specific or if that meant all the city spheres. Is that? Because what it appears to say is it would be a city, not all of them. So I'm just asking, is that supposed to be plural, or is that supposed to be a specific? In other words, are we only considering subsidizing a city sphere or both city spheres?
Well,
I just don't know what the meaning is.
I take it generically.
So it would
I know
be-
Alan wrote a letter and reminded us that we were going to do something, and we got sidetracked with the notion that the city and the county would negotiate or have a facilitated meeting. And for me, it's a generic issue. Should LAFCo substitute this, subsidize the
cities.
environmental review of a city or a district sphere?
Okay.
So
then it should be a plural cities there, or not?
Right,
Yeah.
I would say city. It even goes further than that. It's a city or a district, but in this context, it's what was said.
Right, okay.
And the focus of the letter, I believe, and Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, it was regarding the city
City
of
of
Lakeport
Lakeport.
sphere. That's what was mentioned.
Right.
The letter wasn't mentioned about Upper Lake or anything.
Well, and that's what,
Yeah.
and I believe maybe at the time that was also brought up, is were we being specific or were we being...
Yeah, and the letter reminded me that we should go back and we should adopt a policy.
Right.
And so I've got a bunch of policy
So but
alternatives that we'll talk about
Right.
today.
So a policy would not be for a single instance then? A policy
No.
should be the
It's-
same policy
it's
for
broad.
everybody?
general
It's
policy.
Yeah.
general
We're going to
policy.
talk about that today.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I just address that specifically? Since,
Absolutely.
Okay.
what John said is the intention behind it, of course, is not specific to a certain city. Maybe they just change the minutes, just strike the and substitute it with a. That's all.
Make it plural.
Yeah, okay, that would,
Thank you.
Okay.
that's a good suggestion. Okay, anything else? Then I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes with this change.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes as amended, to be held today.
Second.
Got 2 seconds, but I think Stacy was quicker.
Yes, you
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Next up is the consent agenda. This is where we pay the bills. Any discussion? Motion? consent agenda, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I missed the second.
Jeff? Opposed? Motion carries. Now, okay. Now we're going to talk about our budget. This is a public hearing regarding the LAFCo 2014-15 proposed budget. So we'll open the public hearing, and John will lead off.
Okay, I want to lead off with, I wrote a report, but I want to go to the end of the report. And the first item is the service review and peer update status. And this is a list of the service reviews that we've done or should do or that are completed, that need to be updated, or whatever. Just going very quickly through this is the city of Clear Lake. We're awaiting some comments on the service review, and they are in their process of doing their general plan EIR and still haven't decided on a lot of things, so they're not prepared yet to give me comments. And understandably, the city of Lakeport, I'm awaiting some city CEQA information, and that'll happen at some point. And Hidden Valley Lake CSD is one that we've done years ago that really needs another look at, and so I'll discuss that a little later. The same with the Adams Springs Water District. We haven't done one for that. And the Villa Blue Estates, these are very small service reviews. They will not be very many pages because they're very small. So if we just go down, the other is the RCDs. I have a draft, and I'm going to get that to the districts so that they can, the East Lake and West Lake RCD. So that's in draft form. The fire protection districts is in draft form. I can't recall, when you guys are evaluating me, I'm going to go visit Ken Wells over there at the city, or the fire district, because he and I need to coordinate on something. So all the fire district, the draft service review has been drafted. It's just a matter of starting it through the process, which will take several months, but it'll happen. The other one is the Watershed Protection District. I don't know where it's at on this list, but the Watershed Protection District, I've received committee comments. I've not received any comments from the county yet. I asked the county to give me comments by the end of the month, and Alan, where's that at?
Wait, are we going to your agenda item on the executive director's report, or are we
No,
talking
I'm
about?
going on the budget. I just want to know.
So are we going to discuss the district?
I'm on the list for the status of all of the MSRs, and then I'm going to get into the budget report.
I'm sorry.
You can't interrupt in the middle
I'm
of
sorry.
somebody.
That is part of the budget report, is knowing the status of the service reviews. That sets the table for the budget discussion.
Alan?
Yeah, Alan Forster, the county. I talked to Scott this morning. We met a couple of times about that, and he said to let you know that he anticipates he's incorporating both of our comments and expects to have that draft to you by the end of this week.
Okay, that's good. So that tells me that next year we were not budgeting for this. We are going to finish this up at the June meeting, or possibly at the June meeting. The May meeting or the July meeting. It might take 2 meetings to get through this. Because I have to assimilate the comments, get a comment log to you, and then have you make some decisions. So let's just go on to the budget report. Many of you have seen something similar to this in years past, but we've got new commissioners. And essentially we anticipate normally every year that we'll have 1 or 2 small reorganizations or annexations or whatever. And so that's part of the process, as well as various inquiries we have. And I go through justification of why we've got the budget categories the way we have them, and that we do have, I get a lot of inquiries from various folks. We did last year do a grand jury report that would cost LAFCo's budget a substantial amount of money if we were to to follow their recommendation of consolidating all the water and sewer districts and putting them under the County Special Districts Office, and so you don't even want to ask me what that would cost. I'm not planning for that in the budget. It would be phenomenal, and besides, we would probably need a lot of legal expenditures in that, because a lot of districts will take exception, and the ultimate decision will be made by the voters. So, not us. Special projects to the commission is, you know, that you've got a lot of ability to require special projects and reports. I've not specifically mentioned any here that we need. What we need to do is continue on with the mandates, which are the MSRs and spheres. So that's my recommendation. And I go through a little explanation of what the spheres are, and I want to go down to a recommendation on page 5, and that's complete the service review for Clear Lake and the sphere updates for Lakeport, because I know that that's going to go into next fiscal year. The sphere of influence is completing the sphere for the fire districts. That will also go into next year. The watershed protection district, likewise, that needs to be completed. And that'll, you know, I'm hoping it won't go into next year, but you never know. These things seem to take a while. And the RCDs, the resource conservation districts, and then if time and budget afford, initiate the review of Hidden Valley Lake, Adams Springs, and the Villa Blue Estates. Work on those service reviews. Budgeting, basically it just takes money to do these things. So the best way to go through the budget is to look at the spreadsheet. I did a narrative on each one, and I'm going to try to do this from memory. So if you go to that spreadsheet, which is the Exhibit A in the resolution, you have a track record of the budgets for the last few years, since 2009, of what we've done. And you get down to the 2013 and 14 final budget, which is column G, and then you get to, does everyone have a copy of that? I have a couple extra copies of the packet here.
I can't get online here.
No.
Yeah. The secret word doesn't allow us.
Oh. Wait for its secret password.
Do you need the secret word?
Well, there is a public access.
Well, it seems to be locked also.
It's locked. Let me see if I can get the,
Yeah, we have this problem every time.
yeah.
If you could get it, that'd be good.
John, do you have any more copies of that?
Oh, well, I've handed out every one I have.
If I can get online, this one's available.
I have a public copy right there.
Okay.
You know, can I ask a question while we're waiting to get the secret word? And the duck comes down. I had a question just on page 4. John, it says the public remains disengaged and many times district boards of directors never see the municipal service reviews prepared by LAFCo. I just was wondering why that would be. Doesn't a copy go to them?
You know, the problem is we've been giving them to the managers, but the managers don't share it with the board.
Oh, okay.
So that's an issue.
Okay, I would think that would be a big one, because, you know, if we're paying to get these MSRs done, then the people that put that about should
We had
just
that
read them.
prime example, I think was Lower Lake.
It was more like water.
Yeah,
Okay.
3 years ago,
yeah.
when they came.
So, anyway,
As a commission.
does everybody have something? You want to look at my chart here? I've got mine on my
No,
computer.
that's good. I really appreciate this. It's good,
So,
information.
what I did was I kind of did an expenditures through February 2014. We don't have, you know, the whole year. But if you look at the column G, column H, and column I being the proposed budget, we go on to commissioner stipends, and that's assuming, I believe, 7 meetings a year. And unless I say something different in my report, supplies, I've left the same. The LAFCo dues have gone up at 1.5% this year, so they're at $769 as opposed to $758. The Books and periodicals are the same. And the attorney contracts is the same. The LAFCo clerk services is the same. Office expenses, that's the miscellaneous, like when I have my bill, it includes all kinds of things in there, and I don't itemize it, that's just the way it is. And it's like an office stipend, so that's included in that. Staff services, that's the same as the past, several of these is past several years. The legal notices and publications, I just included that as the same because we do have some more coming up this year. And transportation and travel, we've overspent on the conference this year rather significantly. So I've reduced it down to what we budgeted this year. The conference is in Ontario, California this year, and it's for you, it would be a travel to the nearest airport. I guess if you're in Clear Lake, you go to Sacramento. If you're in Lakeport, it's a toss-up. But it's in Ontario, and it would be great if a few of you could attend. I think we all should be establishing some policies of who attends conferences, and usually it's new commissioners or those that haven't been in the last couple of years, and we just kind of rotate that around. Or of course, some people always want to go. But I envision it'll be about $1,200 a person to send somebody to the conference, so it costs about it would be budgeted for about 3 people. And so unfortunately this one is in Ontario, but on the other hand, it's just an easy drive to Sacramento and catch a flight down, or Oakland. Next year, the year after this, it'll be in Sacramento, which is another one of these closed conferences that would be a little easier. So you don't have to rent a car when you get down there either, if that makes it good. So that's conference registration. And Sphere, we had this kind of category called MSR and SOI. I've zeroed it out to no money because I've got those elsewhere. Insurance, basically I lowered that a little because of the lowering cost of county insurance. We get our insurance through the county risk management. And have for years. Data mapping, I've lowered that a lot. A lot of the mapping is kind of integrated into the budgets for the service reviews. The web page, we used to spend a lot of money on that. We've lowered it to just, I put 250 in there. Probably could be a little less, but I just left it at that. And our website is not very expensive to maintain. We have an agreement with the county auditor's office. They've not told me it would be anything different, so I'm leaving it at the rate that I originally negotiated with Pam Cochran. A financial review, there's nothing in that. The city, since this county does our services. The city sphere of influence, I've reduced that down to a bare minimum to get through the city sphere. And service, let's see, I'm going to take out these extemporaneous line items when I'm in the final budget, because there's the old things we used to budget for, and once we're done with it today, it's out, and so I'll reduce the number of categories. The MSR, the spheres of influence budget is another 4,000, so there's 8,000 to work on spheres. And then the MSRs, I've reduced that substantially to $8,000, and rather than the previous amount, because as you remember, for a few years in the early 2000s, we didn't do a lot of service reviews. We were just getting organized, and so this money got saved into I guess a fund balance, and we've been expending that recently, so we're at a point that if we want to budget more for these things, we need to raise the budget. I didn't want to raise the budget because there's chronic fiscal issues with cities, and the 2 cities, especially the city of Clear Lake. I won't mention Lakeport, but there are these issues. I want to keep it a reasonable amount. So the budget, the services and supplies budget is less than last year. last year was budgeted 133, this is 108. So that's reduced. I have a contingency fund and a general reserve fund that I want to keep funded. If we need to, like if we send more people to the conference, we need to dip into the contingency fund to fund it. And we will be, we've done that because of the cost overrun in the travel. So the expenditure budget is 128 this year as opposed to 153, essentially. I did a conservative carryover balance of 25,000 versus 50,000. As you can see, that we had a higher carryover balance. We will not this year. So to balance the budget, we have to reduce costs. Now, that's the, if I can get down to the end. So the end is that the apportioned amount would be virtually the same as last year, a few hundred less. The issue is that there will be a limited amount for service reviews. And when I had a conservative amount budgeted for rollover, that I'm hoping that in this fiscal year we do most of the work getting the watershed protection MSR done and getting the fire, most of the fire done, and the legwork on those. And so, and the RCDs. So that would leave us a nominal amount to get to work on these other service reviews for the next fiscal year. So anyway, that's the budget. So the proposed budget would be pretty much the city and county and districts contributions would be approximately the same as last year.
Okay. Any questions? I've got one thing that I'd like to, I think this is probably as good a time as any. For a long, long time, we've been using this 3-letter acronym MSR, which stands for Municipal Service Reviews, to talk about these service reviews. And I just don't like MSR because most of the service reviews are not for municipal, they're not for the cities. Most of them are for all these different agencies, these water districts and fire districts and so forth. And I think we should either just call them service reviews. I've noticed John has been calling them that this morning in his report. He just calls them service reviews. Or something else like agency service reviews. I think it would be a little more accurate than calling them municipal service reviews.
It's a hard habit to break, but the word municipal service reviews isn't mentioned anywhere in the LAFCo law.
Okay.
It's a service review.
Well, I think we should break the habit.
Break the habit.
So when from now on, if the rest of you are in agreement, we should direct John that in further documents, we'll just leave off the end.
Yeah. 10 cents for everyone that uses the word.
Yes, Scott?
I'm going to make my annual plea about concerning your budget. This year, you're reducing your reserves. You're going to have 20,000 in reserves according to this, and then perhaps 25,000, it's hard to tell, of carryover. And you may or may not. That is, having gone 2 years ago through an experience with Nevada LAFCo where they were sued unexpectedly and didn't have the money because they had been doing just as John, being extremely prudent and cutting and cutting and cutting and using their reserves in order to avoid contributions by the cities. They didn't have the money to pay for the defense. And the agency sued them because it knew they didn't have the money for the defense. It was pressuring them in order to get the result it wanted. I would urge you to consider not cutting your budget to a point. I think you need more than $20,000 in reserves. If you get sued, your costs are very likely to be $50,000 even in a minimal case. and for legal defense costs in a year. So it's just very imprudent to cut your reserves to the extent that are proposed in this budget. I would recommend you consider increasing your contingency and/or create other agencies have a litigation reserve. And you may or may not choose to specify that specifically, but you need to have, I would say, a minimum of $40,000 to $50,000 in reserves at all times. It's just not prudent otherwise.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, let me get the commissioners first.
Just a question, so if we're sued, there is no litigators that represent us without us paying them directly. We're not part of any consortium or anything.
No.
We don't have like CSAC or anything.
Well, CSAC wouldn't represent.
No, I'm not talking about that. Something like for the county, we have coverage.
Yeah.
Well, no, if the county gets sued for a decision you make, you're going to have to either have county counsel do it or go out and hire outside counsel and pay for it out of the general fund. So it's just the same with LAFCo.
And then if we don't have the funds to cover it, what are they going to get if they sue us?
Well, what they'll get is
the decision.
a default decision in their favor, invalidating your action because you didn't defend it. And they win. And that's the problem. That's why public agencies maintain prudent reserves.
Is it possible, let's just imagine a scenario where we were sued and we didn't have the money to cover the cost. Could we then amend the budget at that time and have an extra assessment for all the agencies?
No. You only can assess once a year.
Okay.
Now, what happened in Nevada County, you do have the ability to ask the county to lend you the money to carry you over till the next budget. And in Nevada County's case, the Board of Supervisors agreed to do that. And I'm sure Lake County Board of Supervisors might consider, they're not required to, it's purely discretionary. Whether they lend you the money.
Yes.
And so therefore, that's why this is your time, right now in this budget, to decide whether you're going to create a reserve or not.
Okay.
I have a question. Is there such a thing as a legal defense insurance that we could buy that would be substantially less than having a contingency fund?
No. I mean, because the problem is your actions are deliberate. You get sued for deliberate decisions you make. You can get insurance for involuntary or accidental things, but you don't accidentally decide to deny someone's project. You deliberately decide, and no insurance will cover a deliberate decision.
That makes sense. All right, okay.
You need to decide right.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott, that was very interesting. I have two questions about this. We talked about this last time a little bit about how do we know how much a municipal service review is going to cost. We sort of had a conversation about the minimum requirements of what they are. We're not really sure what they are. Who defines what's appropriate for which type of district? Obviously, the cemetery districts, they get, pennies on the dollar from the property taxes, so there's not a whole lot of concern about their funding. But we do have this other issue with the watershed protection district, the resource conservation districts, perhaps, where there's a substantial amount of money involved. And so I'm not sure how you make the estimate of the cost for municipal service reviews that you just say, $8,000 is enough. We're talking about some pretty,
I'm not
large.
too sure it is enough. I'm just doing it to
Yeah.
get the best.
No, I'm trying to help you here, John. Okay? I'm not sure that's enough. And then also the issue of the sphere of influence. I mean, in simple districts, the sphere of influence is not really difficult. Upper Lake County Water District, I mean, we know exactly the end of that pipe. That's our district. But the watershed protection district, sanitation district, and whatnot, there's some significant issues related to where you set those boundaries that have to do with our permit compliance, and that could be one of those times you might really want to hire an expert to give us some good advice on that. So that's my suggestion on the budgeting for that. The other question I have is, you have staff office services at $48,000. What is that?
It's all in the report. It basically maintains the staff for LAFCo and
What was that?
answers
What
a
did
lot
they
of
do?
questions. Read the report. It's all in there what I do.
Which one? No, not you. Oh, is that you? I
Yes,
apologize.
that's
I didn't
me.
know that was you.
Yes.
Okay,
That's what I do. I
That's
mean,
fine. I
that's-
just realized it was you. I don't think you do staff. I apologize. I thought maybe you were hiring people to do something else. I didn't know what it was.
No, not any of that. I
Okay.
may hire people to work on service reviews, but the staff part,
Okay.
I do that,
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
100%.
Suzanne?
Yeah, and this may be part of the same question that Betsy asked, because I see in the special projects, under claims, the Watershed Protection District Service Review and Sphere of Influence is like $6,300, but we're only looking at $8,000 for the entire year, and so that kind of, I was going, is this a hugely, why would this one be so expensive?
It's, yeah, the
Compared
service
to
review
others.
is written.
It's the Sphere?
Now, it's been written. We had that meeting
Yeah,
last week
yeah.
or a couple
Last
of
month.
weeks ago.
Last
month.
And, yeah, last month, and I'm expecting some comments from the county soon, and I've got some comments from Betsy, sent me everything I needed. So my task is to put it together and see where we're at. And depending, we may need to call another committee meeting, or the next step would be is to do a comment log and take it up to the LAFCo Commission.
Right, I
For
just,
their consideration and get it, and finish the project.
right. I just was wondering, though, why this one, it seems to be like 3/4 of like a yearly budget, just for this
Yes.
service.
Don't you need more money?
That's what I'm looking at. If this one was this
I'm just
expensive.
trying, I'm being coy. I could use as much money as you could give me. The problem is that everybody we have to have physical constraints. You can talk to any department head in the city or the county, and they're going to say, my budget should be doubled. You know, and I've gone through these games, and then you start to think, is it more efficient to drive a Lexus or to drive a Honda Hybrid? And you get the same place with the Honda Hybrid as you would the Lexus at quite a bit less cost. So what I've been trying to do is do things in a fiscally responsible way, because I know we hired an MSR consultant, remember? And it was a disaster. It was a freaking disaster, and I had to spend most of my time dealing with it.
Right.
And could have just written it with the, you know. So you're right. We could budget more money. I just want to, at least I want to be the fiscal conservative in the room. And if you feel like we should be spending more money on LAFCO, we could. I'm not I'm not 100% convinced it's necessary. I just want to I'd rather keep things lean. And if there is something that's inadequate, then at that point we could budget for it. Like I have another LAFCO that has 2 districts that have had embezzlement problems this last year. Not that there's no problems with any of the special districts in Lake County, but as a result, there are lots of issues with these districts that are uneducated. So what we want to do is LAFCO is sponsoring a training on fiscal management for these districts. As all of you know, maybe you don't, the county members might, is that if a district fails or goes into receivership, guess who's responsible? We'll point our finger over toward the county's people. They are responsible, and the commissioners in that county know that. I mean, not only the county members, but the other members do too. And it really provides a service, because when you have a fire district ran on a budget of $62,000 a year, they don't have a lot of money to send their people to CSDA training. So we just bring the trainer to them, and LAFCO shells out, you know, $5,000 or whatever. And there's a big bang for the buck. It helps the county, it helps the districts. So we try to just, because if we help them now and they know what they're supposed to do, that saves a lot of money in the future. Like Anita Grant here does, or Cameron did before Anita, was a book on special district rules and regulations. Big helpful, and they do a county council here does a training, at least used to. I assume she still does. Once a year, So that saves money. They get their fiscal act together, everything kind of falls into place. The MSRs go a lot smoother. But not always, but still. Anyway,
I think
bottom
so.
line is you can budget more money for it. We can try it as it is. If it's it's not working, the next year we can look at an alternative and budget more to do this. Another thing is our next item. We'll talk about that with sequel costs. That's another issue.
I just want to, Suzanne, are you finished?
Well, notwithstanding, I'm just wondering if, because the service review for the Watershed Protection District had a work group, so it didn't have a consultant, so it shouldn't have been the most expensive one on the planet. And when you look at the fact that we're going to be doing them for cities, which I would assume would take more work because you have more departments that you're looking at, that if we're going to be doing ones for cities in this next year, that maybe 8,000 wouldn't be enough if the Watershed Protection District took 6. That's all. I always think it's better to budget for what you really think you're going to need instead of going, well, we'll try to bring in money later. I guess I'm asking, is it a realistic number?
I think Mike Dunlap had a question.
Actually, I have two.
Okay.
I'll try and stick to this subject first. On municipal service reviews / sphere of influence, I'm going to suggest that your proposed budget is low, John, because I know particularly in the fire districts, they're going to be looking at redefining maps because some of them were previously forced into having their sphere of influence off into some of the paper subdivisions, which should rightfully be part of CAL FIRE. And in order to correct that, there may be some pushback from CAL FIRE. And those things are going to need to be considered, and it's going to take time. Time is money. So that's what I would suggest on that particular issue. Okay? The other unraised issue so far, I don't see anything in the budget on an issue which has been discussed at some length, which is where are Lake County LAFCo's records and how are they going to be accessible to the public? I don't see anything in the budget to bring those records into the county, archive them, and make them available. And I think that is something that you have to consider. You're responsible for doing that.
Well, so everybody knows, they're all at the City of Clear Lake right now. And I've been working on them. Some archiving I may need to go back into the storage room, but there's like 20 or so boxes, maybe more, in the storage room in the back. And so the City of Clear Lake has some protocols for going back into the storage room. A staff member needs to be with the person, and so they are there now. But that's something I'll need to work with the city manager on and how to do this so as to not utilize a lot of city time. So, but they are in the city right now. Archiving, I have to come over here and visit the files a day before it gets too hot back there and archive the files a little easier.
I'll loan you one of those little battery-powered things.
So those are there. And what's the other issue?
Well,
the fire districts. Yeah.
the fire district, you know,
There's dispatch issues. There's CAL FIRE they do these local fire districts. They do structural fires mostly. CAL FIRE does brush fires, and they'll save a structure if it's in danger as a result of a brush fire. They have certain protocols they meet. Unfortunately, in Lake County, as well as most other rural areas, there's a state fire fee which is supposedly paying for them. There's dispatch issues. That's a major issue with these fire districts, is that make sure that the correct person is dispatched or correct department.
well, but there's
issues out there. Yeah.
there are, and there's significant cost to the districts. So the districts want to get them defined. Because
Right.
as this year is an example, you know, the Glenhaven CAL FIRE station closed last November, is not yet open this year, we're still in, you know, arguably what would be fire season any other time of year, except it's not yet spring because of the lack of rainfall. And yet there is no CAL FIRE response to the east end of the Oaks branch of the lake at this point, except from Ukiah and Middletown. So guess who's covering, okay? Our local fire districts. And they, you know, they're not getting $150 a residence.
Yeah, Jerry knows probably more about this than I do, but a lot of them have OES engines, and they're funded, and if they respond, that the districts will get, they'll get reimbursed. Is that true for a local fire?
It's set up to do that, and that doesn't always work out efficiently.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's the workout thing.
I'll call on you, Betsy, as soon as we get through this.
Sorry.
But he brings up, you know, some issues that are in the service review, and I'm working with the chiefs about some of those things. But there is, yeah, we don't have that as much in this county, but I have a problem when districts start responding to non-districted areas, and that the taxpayers in the district are paying for this service to people that don't pay for the service. But Lake County, it's not as big of a problem as it is in, say, a place like Plumas County. It's a real big problem there. But
We
here-
don't have guys that
and we don't
drive
have-
fire trucks to the street corner and watch the house burn on the other side. You know.
They don't do that.
I know that. I'm just saying, John. but,
I know. That's the problem. Maybe if they did it, but you can't say that because
I just did.
you can't say it. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to try to keep this moving along. Betsy?
Yes, this is really a critical, you know, as you know, I was involved in working on I learned a lot about LAFCo from starting with the fire protection districts. And our chief has explained to me the losses of their revenues because the sphere of influence then was expanded to areas where people are theoretically paying for service, but the amount that they're paying is so little compared to the cost of actually delivering that service, like a Bartlett Springs Road, for example. But they're also 80 to 85% of their services are medically related, emergency response, and they are our community frontline responders for all the people who live in the district. It's not just firefighting, it's medical, emergency, and non-emergency responses, and they are the people that provide this kind of care, you know, interface with the medical systems and emergency processes. They don't have anywhere near the amount of resources they need.
How does this relate to the LAFCo budget?
Well, it's the cost of the MSR. I do not understand the rationale behind how you estimate the cost of an MSR. How big is it? How many dollars do they take in? What's their population, their mileage? Is it little? Is it big? Does it have a lot of complexity? I don't know, and I made a note to myself to go back and review what John said he put in last time, the methodologies and analysis, because I know you added something there to think about this. But when I think about the way this works and the amount of effort that's been put in, if you were to count the hours that I've put in the last 3 or 4 years at some dollar value, you would know that a lot of this work is not evaluated in such a way as to make it doable and useful for the district. And that's all I'm concerned about. So the cost of the MSR, I think you really need to give that real.
Okay.
Yeah,
John, you got something?
I could talk to you about that more than at the meeting, but
Sure.
I guess I'll summarize, it's very difficult.
Yeah, I know, but it is not impossible.
It's not impossible.
Oh,
Yeah.
you can't, let me just say one thing and then I'm
work.
done. Is that you can't judge the amount of controversy over an MSR. I had one MSR, we did all these fire districts for $30,000 in another county. Well, one district didn't like what we did. So it cost me, in addition to several $1,000s in my staff time, it cost me $10,000 in legal expenses dealing with their lawyers. And we almost got into a lawsuit, which I kind of wish we would have, but it wasn't because I don't like the district, but it was this esoteric legal question, but nevertheless.
Well,
That's another story.
I still don't think you got enough money for them.
I don't have, yeah.
We understand, that's the point.
We understand, yeah.
Alan?
Hi, Alan Floor from the County Administrator's Office. A few comments and a couple questions. relative to the general discussion about the budget appropriations for MSR and sphere of influence, we would support the budget as proposed. I think there's a couple things that maybe we could do better, and it leads back to both what Betsy and I think Mike touched on it as well too. And you know, some of these MSRs, well, for example, and I think it was at some point in 2012, there was an MSR done for the city of Lakeport, you know, and that was provided for in this budget. So I think it's possible, and I would, I guess one suggestion would be to maybe have staff provide some sort of estimate on what the cost of that MSR is going to be and bring it to your commission before you decide to move forward, just as an informational thing. I mean, in the county administration, I mean, even if we're having Department of Public Works manage a project for us or something like that, we require them to provide an estimate to quote on their involvement and how much that's going to cost. I mean, I think it's perfectly reasonable. That's not the way we like to do business, is just, you know, have the blank check out there and then we see at the end that it costs $6,500 for an MSR and we expect it to be $1,500 or whatever. And I understand that that is not always an exact science, but it certainly, I think, can be done. The other thing related to this is I think it illustrates the importance of the later discussion related to sequel costs, and you know, I think the commission expressed the opinion at the last meeting that they would like to be responsible for sort of the minimum amount of providing an adequate MSR. If there's something extra that the particular agency working on that project wants to see or has something outside of that scope, then, you know, why would it be reasonable that they're responsible for paying for that? And it provides a way to sort of control the costs within the LAFCo budget. So with those general comments, I did want to say I appreciate, I think it was a point that we raised last year about kind of consolidating the different line items related to MSRs and sphere of influences in the budget. It's just a comment that seemed like there were a lot of different ones and, you know, they were maybe overlapping, so appreciate the work done to sort of combine those and make it a little bit more clear. In the expenditure report that was not the one of the technical resolution, but the earlier one in the packet, I guess it's expenditures currently for this fiscal year. I was noticing the government contributions currently is just over $74,000.
That's out of date
Okay.
because the city of Lakeport hadn't paid its share.
Okay.
And I haven't updated that
Okay,
yet.
that was what I was
Yeah,
curious
that's
about,
not updated.
what was going on with that.
So the fund balance will probably be $20,000 more than what's there. And then what I do is I estimate for the next 3 months, I'm going to go through this much money, and then I get to the $25,000 carryover. We'll know more in May.
Okay. Okay, so then back to the other one, and speaking of the carryover, the $49,900 that you show is through February 14th. In that column, what date is that from? Is that actually from July 1st of 2013, that $49,000?
That's basically all the bills to date. Let me see.
Oh, there isn't
that's
a
the-
carryover amount now
Right, there isn't. That's the end of the year carryover
from
the
last
prior
fiscal.
fiscal year. So, and that was 50,000 essentially, and this year I'm estimating that it's going to be lower.
Because you had more costs. than
Because
you
we spent,
expected.
not that we spent more money, is that keeping the budget low, what I did was, in a lot of cases, I spent more than, not that I had, but I spent our reserve down, to keep the budget the way it was, or to keep it at a flat level.
Well,
Rather than, asking for an increase. And so that's the way I did it.
I think Denise made a point about this last year, and I think it's a little confusing to see what's going on with the way the budget's presented right here. I'm not exactly sure how the cities do it or required to do it, but it's always nice to see the history here, but the numbers that we're looking at are what the final budget amounts are, and those are largely irrelevant depending on what you spend throughout the year. So I think it would be better if we could see actual expenditures for each of those years.
I could probably find them, but I have last year's
Well, I would hope
actuals.
so. But I just think it's hard to get a context, particularly the way the carryover is being treated in this budget, to get an understanding of what's going on. So that would just be a suggestion I would make in the future, is that we could see actual expenditures in the past
For
history.
the past few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Mike?
Okay, I'll step up here and say I'm Mike Dunlap, I'm a member of the public, and considering the overall picture of the proposed budget, I'd like to remind the commission that your job is to do the municipal service reviews, the sphere of influence assessments, that sort of stuff, as opposed to going to conferences. So if you're really, really trying to trim budget, maybe you all want to talk to each other and send one person to a conference and trim that budget and put the rest of the money into doing the work. Thank you.
John, you want to say something?
No, it's
Stretching your legs.
moisten my lips.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody else that wants to comment on this budget of ours? Hearing no one, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. This is the draft. This isn't the final budget.
This is the proposed budget.
This is the proposed budget. Are you asking us to take any action today?
Yes, you need to take action on the proposed budget, and then we'll have a final budget hearing at the next LAFCo meeting in 2 months. The numbers will shake out a little bit. I'll do what Alan has requested, give you a few actuals from the last few years.
Yeah.
And then we'll take a second look at it in May.
Okay. Who's first?
Scott recommends we have greater reserves for potential legal challenges.
Right.
And I can understand, appreciate that. But we're trying to keep our costs down too. So, it behooves us, when we have any decision that may be controversial, he's going to advise us on our legalities and our potentiality of being sued. And it behooves us to listen or disregard it. Maybe it's, we'll know. But that's part of what he's going to do, to look us in the eye. Because we got it from Board of Supervisors, we have county council that look us in the eye.
Say it.
When you get the stink eye, oh, maybe we better think this a little bit. But and I appreciate that. But at this point, and as Mike had said, we need to. I don't think we spend much on conferences. I've never done one. We don't send very many people to conferences. We're not lavish.
Lunch last year.
So that, how much do we have budget for conferences? I don't recall. But from the legality, well, let's go look at every decision and some, you're going to have a gut feeling whether there's a potential of being sued or not. Sometimes they come out of a clear blue sky. But we're going to have a potential, so he's going to be looking at us and telling us.
But the point I'm trying to make here is that you should make your decisions based on policy, not on whether or not you have the money to defend your decision.
That's correct.
That's why it is important that you have a reserve so that you make decisions that are independent of whether or not you don't have to pay for defense. You should do the right thing. That's your job. And if that right thing leads to you being sued, I'm happy to defend you, but you've got to make sure you give me the tools, i.e. the money, to do it. And you don't have to have it all in 1 year, but we're getting to a point where you don't have the money. And I think you could at least increase the reserve by 10,000. That would not have a huge impact on anybody, but it would be more prudent.
Okay. Jerry.
You know, I'm really wondering if we shouldn't, for a number of different reasons, things that have been stated here, is add another $5,000 to the budget a year for the next few years, and put them toward reserves, or, you know, in a large.
Set up a separate legal.
Well, not even. Not even.
Reserve. That's wherever you need.
Right, and then we have it, if, you know, we come to where we do have a large service review, I saved a dime. For the, you know, for either service review or for legal or whatever, we've reduced the budget, you know, from back in 2009, 2010, it was over 111,000. But, you know, I think maybe we should pay attention to what's been said and start setting a little aside for the things we know that's going to come up eventually, not especially legal, but the service reviews or whatever. And, you know, that's split up, you know, we're looking at $2,500 for the county and what, $1,250 or something for each city, but I think it's something that's well invested, you know, for down the road. And we do that for a couple of years, we'll build a little bit of it.
Okay, Jerry?
I'm not sure what this carryover balance is it earmarked for something or not. If it's not, then why don't we take a portion of that money and start our legal defense fund? I agree with it, getting it started, whether we increase the budget or...
It was all reappropriated into this year's budget, the whole 49,000, 20 of which is for reserve.
Which isn't enough anymore.
So you would just simply appropriate more for reserves if you raise the budget.
Well, I'm in agreement in starting this fund, where whatever amount that we add to the budget, I think we need it.
We're doing the same thing in Calusa. And every year they voted to increase the general reserve 10,000 a year. So last year they had 33,000. Next budget year they'll have 43,000. And so we're going to cap it at 50. And so next year after it'll be at 7,000. And then after that we won't budget anymore. So we'll reduce the budget.
Okay. Stacy?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's important that we keep a tight budget, but I would definitely add at least 10,000. When it gets this tight, it's just uncomfortable. And so if something happens or we need more, it makes sense to add 10,000 to protect whatever may come. I also wanted to say, John, thank you for that report because it was really helpful. The information, and even regarding the conventions, you mentioned, the value of spending. It's not that much money, but it does really help us make proper decisions.
Well, it sounds like we're getting down to debating the amount. We haven't heard yet from this side of the table, but it sounds like there's a consensus to put something more in reserves. I'm sorry, the public hearing's closed.
You might want to hear this question.
I might, but I'm getting input from the commissioners.
I'm definitely in agreement because, again, as Stacy said, uncomfortable. Being new to this commission and how much everything does cost, I'm learning. But when I hear the other commissioners who have sat here say it's getting uncomfortable, that concerns me. And I do agree about conferences costing money and be careful on that. Not everyone needs to attend, maybe. I would be more in line of maybe $5,000 increments rather than $10,000, just to make it easier on the other people that have to pay towards this.
And just doubling the period of time to get it.
That's correct.
Unfortunately.
It's a trade-off. Okay.
Oh, I want to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's being said. We need to cover what's going on before we get, over our head, so.
Okay, but are you on the 5 or the 10?
I would start with a 5.
Okay, so we got a 5, a 5, a 5.
If I make a comment on that too.
Okay.
I think a 5, and I agree with Stacy, it'd be nice to get there sooner, but things are coming back. Hopefully things are coming back for all of us, tax-wise and everything else, and it's still tough, even those little increments, to come up with some more money. So I would say that we look at 5 this year, and then we look at 10 next year, if and when things come back a little better. Because it's still tough for all of us to, to come up with extra funds. I know the county's still struggling. A lot of people don't think we're struggling, but we are. We're struggling to keep, people employed and, so.
Okay.
I would agree with Jim, we go with a 5 and we look at 10 next year.
Okay. Well then, anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we increase our distribution fund by 5,000 this year. And we can't put in a motion for next year, but that's just in our thoughts.
Right, and this is a preliminary budget, so you're directing John to add.
To increase it by $5,000.
Okay, so the amount to be shared by the county, the cities, and the districts would be $98,537.
Correct.
Okay. Everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I second the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? Now, does that meet your requirements, John, as far as action?
Yes, as far as passing the resolution, would somebody like to offer the resolution, or did you just do that?
No, that wasn't the resolution.
That was a resolution that's come out first. But one item of discussion for tonight, and then you will incorporate the things that Alan said about the.
For the final budget.
For the final budget.
We'll do a track, actually, it's a good exercise, because at that point, I can see a track record, maybe have some recommended changes later on.
Mr. Chair, after the resolution.
Okay. Resolution's been offered. The clerk read the roll. Roll call vote.
Commissioners Jeff Smith,
Aye.
Jim Comstock,
Aye.
Jerry Mills,
Aye.
Stacy Martina,
Aye.
Denise Lusteron,
Aye.
Frank Gillespie,
Aye.
Ed Roby.
Aye. Now, I don't think, I didn't get a second, because it wasn't exactly a motion. It was
We had that
an
discussion.
I believe it was correct, right?
Yeah, it's a written resolution that's before you.
Right, I'm just
And it can
checking
be
my
offered
parliamentary
without-
procedure here. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Now. Next up, review and discuss CEQA alternatives when LAFCo acts as a CEQA lead agency and discussion of direction on how the commission wants to proceed. So, tell me what this is about.
Well, it kind of came out of our discussion last month, and Alan wrote a letter, and a light bulb went on in my head that we never did resolve this issue. And we were all focused on the city of Lakeport and county. And so I would like you to do me a favor and not think about the city of Lakeport and the county. So when we're responsible in this case, I know it's hard for some of you, but we're interested, I want to look at this more holistically, is we are mandated to do CEQA reviews of spheres of influence. Most of them are exempt, or we can use an environmental document that was prepared by an agency to support the sphere of influence, which is common. We also, sometimes we receive sphere of influence amendment requests whereby somebody applies and they indemnify us and they and the costs are all paid for to do the sphere amendment. For an update, that's not the case. So it comes to LAFCo, and so some of the alternatives are the easy, simple one is just adopt a sphere of influence coterminous with the district boundaries. Well, that's really not acceptable, because that one really, it will, you guys have discretion on where the spheres of, what the spheres of influence are. You don't, doing that would take all your discretion away, and it would be unfair to you and your agencies, and everyone in the county. So I've come up with some alternatives. You know, one is that all the secret costs, basically you blackmail the agencies when you're doing a sphere update. That is really not acceptable. I'm just going to burn down to these, and I'm going to get to the end. And the last one is the one that, if anything, I would recommend, is that we develop a, based on, we do an MSR, we do a sphere of influence proposal for us, for LAFCo. We make a staff recommendation, to the commission. And if an agency wants more than the staff recommendation from the commission, then they should pay for the cost of the service review. So, and I've got you know, in this county and other places, we've always got these agencies that want to have more land in their sphere, and there's lots of reasons that they may want it. So the incremental CEQA, and in fact, I'm having a conversation with the county planning department over a district in South Lake County about this situation now, and the county has already told me we'll do the CEQA. So I kind of gave them a cost. In fact, I want to firm that up this morning by going over there. But the additional cost of providing a service review or a sphere of influence to encompass that area is an incremental cost. And it may or may not be my recommendation, but when we partner up with the county, I think both of us will save a lot of money in doing that one. So I would make the recommendation at the end is that we make a recommendation to the commission. I mean, you can change that, that LAFCo shall consider a sphere of influence update recommendation by the executive officer and the commission agrees. Then if the agency wants more, then the agency can pay for the cost of the review. That way, it would, rather than putting all the heat on me, I can spread the heat to the LAFCo commission. And the LAFCO commission can be a part of that decision. So that would be my recommendation. And if an agency, say Upper Lake, wanted to annex part of all the way to Nice, for example, trying to get a remote one, since she's not here, that area, that somebody would have to pay for the CEQA review to go to Nice, because we would recommend it just be in the Upper Lake area. So
we would cover the basic
what we feel is
requirements that we have to meet anyway.
Exactly.
And then anything above and beyond that would be on the agency?
Yeah, and some agencies realize that, you know, they are going to grow to these areas. A lot of times we'll get an application from a developer to amend a sphere of influence. Well, that's a whole other issue. They're paying for it anyway, because we're not going to voluntarily put ourselves on the line because of some proposed development proposal that the developer could be funding, which is the way it works. So my recommendation would be pass a resolution with number 5, providing for acceptance by the commission, when I would only add that line to it, and the commission agrees. Because we had this deal come up with Hidden Valley Lakes a few years ago. Remember when Mel Ost wanted to, or the district wanted to annex that whole valley?
Oh yeah, Coyote Valley.
Coyote Valley. And we kept arguing with them and their attorneys about this, we were saying a trigger CEQA. And they were saying, no, it wasn't. So Scott finally convinced them, yes, it triggers CEQA. So they had to think about, long and hard about, whether they wanted to pay the incremental cost of that. So.
Okay. Suzanne?
Yeah, John, should there be something in there that comes out of recommendation 4 about EIRs that have been previously prepared? Because didn't we talk about that? Would that need to be added to 5 if we wanted to use EIRs that are still in date?
Yeah, what I try to do on, the city of Clear Lake's doing an EIR
Right.
now, and I'm trying to be involved in the process. And I wrote a letter, that was on the notice of preparation for their EIR, so that we're involved in that.
But shouldn't that, I know we've talked about this a lot, should not some of that language, if we agree on 5, which is your recommendation, shouldn't there be some language in there that says documents that have already been prepared that are still good, EIRs, could be used?
Right, I'll have to write a sentence.
If it adds that, I mean,
to add that, I know what you're talking about, and I agree.
Okay, thank you.
And the county, likewise with the county does an EIR on its area plan, and it says the Calliope Water District should be a little larger. That the
you don't have to do a new EIR for.
no, but the county would make a decision if they need to do an addendum or not.
Right.
And then we would just accept that EIR, which is common. But I could add a sentence on those previously prepared EIRs. But it is important that, and the county wasn't doing this in the past. They were adopting it, I might as well point my finger, but it's 2 planning directors ago or something. But they didn't refer these things, like the Borgasani annexation out there. I never heard about it until after it was through the Board of Supervisors. It would have been just so simple to send the environmental review to LAFCo. We comment as a responsible agency, end of story. But they didn't do that. Rick will do that.
Yeah. I just want to clarify, this item today, you're basically asking us to make a decision on these various options. And then you're going to go back and you're going to write up a resolution with the proper language and bring it back at the next meeting?
Right. And we'll adopt it at the next meeting. There'll be a change to our bylaws, so I'll probably hold a public hearing on it.
I just want everybody to understand what the process is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll draft up some language very quickly and refer it to Rick and the 2 city planners, or 2 city managers, well.
For comments. Right?
The 2 city managers, and they'll deal with it. And then we'll get some suggestions and have a final product to send to the commission.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? I saw Betsy with her hand up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd like to know if we could add kind of a just-in-case sort of clause. I think combining 4 and 5 is good, but in the instance where a condition requires that LAFCo use its watchdog capacity, as you like to call it, where a sphere of influence change might be necessary, the agency might oppose it, or the agency might not have the ability to make that, pay for that. You know, some of the cemetery districts, I'm thinking now, you know, that might have to do some, they have no money to do any kind of changes. You know, if you said something like, you know, the agent, should an agency desire to include more territory, yeah, that's fine. But LAFCo doesn't give up its authority over changing a sphere if it's needed. If you go through an MFR and you see like our fire protection
If
district.
LAFCO initiated it, LAFCO would pay for it. But what this is saying is that if the agency asks for more.
This is only in the case then where the agency asks for more. Is that right?
Yeah, that was you mentioned a concern that I have, and I think we'll
I mean, I'd
make
like
sure
that to be really clarified there. It's not.
because you do have the authority, and you don't want to hamstring yourself, well, we can't do our job because we're afraid of the sequel cost.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
good point. We'll make sure it's clear.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, sir.
LAFCo from the county. I agree with Betsy. I think we need to take a little bit more of a comprehensive look at this. I agree with.
I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, the PA is not on, you just have to speak up, the mic isn't doing anything.
I agree that maybe there should be a little bit more comprehensive look. I think there may be a couple of holes in this. I think generally, the county would be supportive of this type of direction. While it doesn't, Commissioner Lyons' point about number 4, I think would be a really good idea to include in there the proposed policy that the Board of Supervisors sent to your commission included something along that line. So while it does, obviously if it's not in there, it doesn't preclude the commission from utilizing that, but I think it's nice to have in there. So,
Believe me, we want to utilize any
Sure.
environmental review you
sure.
do.
And at the last meeting, John had indicated that he would sit down with me and talk about some of the concerns that we have, and that hasn't happened yet. So I would just again request that before something goes in the agenda, you have the opportunity to do that.
Okay. Anyone else? Going. Okay, Richard.
I'm Richard Knoll. Let's see, what capacity am I here? I'm a special projects coordinator for the city, and I really don't have a whole lot more to say other than number 4, that proposed policy language refers to, in the case of cities where an EIR has previously been prepared. My only comment is that there are occasionally documents that are not EIRs. You might have an initial study. You actually might have a categorical exemption. And you need to be more generic.
So instead of saying environmental...
Well, I think the first sentence says it, certified environmental documents. But it then goes on to talk about an EIR. Well, a certified environmental document may not be an EIR. It may be an initial study, mitigated negative declaration. And so my only point is to keep it generic, because if something's existing out there that's been prepared, been adopted, been certified, in place, and it can be used by LAFCo, it shouldn't be precluded because it's not an EIR.
Right. Any of the secret documents. Yeah. That's a good point. I agree.
Yeah, cities should be agencies.
Yeah.
Not cities.
Instead of saying city, say agency and no EIR. Environmental. Okay. Anyone else? This is good. Hearing no one. Okay. Well, then let's.
Well,
so what the action that we're being asked to take is basically to
direct me to come back with some language, meet with Alan.
Right, meet with Alan.
And whoever else.
Let the agencies see the draft of the language and comment, and et cetera. Do I want to make a motion to along those lines? Let everybody speak at once.
Motion or just a consensus?
Do we need to?
I don't know.
I would think it'd be a consensus.
Okay,
Tell me
Scott,
to
can
do
we
it.
do this simply by consensus?
Okay, yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Well, then, is there anyone that doesn't agree with this?
We'll do a consensus. I agree.
Okay, then we have a consensus. As Captain Picard would say, make it so. All right, how are we doing? Oh, good. Now, okay, authorize staff to attend the LAFCo annual conference in Berkeley coming up this April. John?
Yeah, there's usually LAFCo has a staff conference in the spring and a fall conference for everyone. And this one, when staff attends these meetings, Scott and I, we apportion the costs among various agencies, or LAFCOs, to reduce the cost to each LAFCO. So we I just want to put this on the agenda so you know I'm traveling and get your blessing for this. And what I do typically is prepare a report, either an oral or written report, depending for the next commission meeting, so you can share in what we learned.
Okay, any discussion? Jared?
No discussion, I was going to make a motion.
Well, I need to get public input first. If there's no commission discussion, any public input? Okay, go.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve this request.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Jefferson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Executive officers report.
Okay, I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. Betsy has something to say about the watershed district per the letter that I forwarded to you. But the first one is that the 700 forms are due April 1st. Okay, make sure you get them into the county, wherever, clerk, I guess. And then we have an annexation proposal in-house, the meeting canon annex to the Calliope Water District, Calliope County Water District. This is the school's annexation that we've been waiting for years to receive, and we finally applied. It's in the process now of going through the tax exchange resolution. What I did find is that a portion of there were some split lines of assessment that the assessor's office found, but this will take care of it, because when the school annexed a portion of it, for some reason the assessor parcels weren't changed. But anyway, we are remedying that, and so there's a tax exchange process that the county will be working on very soon. 700 forms I mentioned, the City of Clear Lake service review, that is kind of caught in the general plan process there. That's going to be coming up, I hope, very quickly. I'll be getting the city's comments. We need to make sure that the facts in the review and the general plan are consistent. So we're working on that. The fire service reviews, I need to meet with the chief of setting the time to meet with all the fire chiefs on that. The watershed protect, I'll say that for last, the RCD service review is another draft document that needs to get to the RCDs and then for comment. And then the last one is the watershed. Well, actually, before I get to the watershed, we've got 2 LAFCo commissioners here. We have other members of the public in special districts that are probably new. They might want to find out what LAFCO is all about, so we should probably in June hold a LAFCO 101 session again, an updated LAFCO 101 session, because there's been a few changes in the law, and that would get the new people up to speed and get the existing people up to speed again. So
June or May?
Sorry, I keep saying June, in May.
Yeah, our May 21st.
The May meeting.
That's okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
May 21st in Clear Lake. I think I messed up on the agenda.
It's okay.
here.
Yeah, it's-
May 21st in Clear Lake,
We know
let's
it's
be
Clear
clear
Lake.
about that. And then the watershed protection, there's a draft out there. I'm waiting for the county's comments. I'm waiting for the city. I got Betsy's comments, and the committee met, and we're getting that together, and that'll get to the commission. But you had a letter that we had forwarded that was written by, I guess, the Board of Supervisors to I don't know if he was an assemblyman or a senator, when the original district was formed. So,
Senator Westchester.
Senator.
It was Senate Bill 1136 that created the
Right.
Watershed Protection District. Thank you. Yeah, what happened was after Anita Grant said that she couldn't quite get the information from the state archives, I called them up and put it on my Visa card, and we ordered the entire legislative package. The first document in that package includes that 2-page letter from the Board of Supervisors in 2003 to West Chesbrough, initiating the request to create the legislation creating the Watershed Protection District. And then Mike was kind enough to make some copies of this first section. It includes some specific discussion from the Agriculture Committee regarding the explicit taxation authorities that are then implemented through the passage of SB 1136. So as far as these endless conversations with the Department of Water Resources about whether or not it has the responsibility for these watershed issues, I think this kind of ought to settle the debate. It's, you know, we have, like John said, we've spent quite a bit of time really assembling a large amount of information to substantiate what we understand about the district itself. I'm going to make a suggestion. I'd like to make a suggestion to throw into your thinking process here, and I would like to say that none of the committee members has any idea what the suggestion is. I haven't discussed it with them. I don't want them to be tainted by the animosity that it might create or the difficulties that it might throw into the ring here. But I would think, truly, that the best thing you could do with this district is put it into the Community Development Department, have the Planning Department be the district manager, hire the Department of Water Resources for water-related and floodplain management services, and make it the full arm of the Planning Department to implement the NPDES stormwater management permit. They did it actually as a function for several years. Rick took that on because there was nobody tall enough or broad enough to take on that role, and the Planning Department held that position until last July, when the decision was made to get Scott DeLeon to sign up to it. Well, I have to tell you, his staff literally is not capable of taking on that broader role. They do flood control, they do lake bed management. But the watershed is the land, and the land management issues are the things that we now have to come into compliance with on this NPDES permit for the MS4. So, and I don't say that just kind of out of the blue. I've had numerous conversations with the staff over the last few years. As you may recall, I am the outreach person, so I worked on their annual plan last year. Here's the bonus. You have a planner in the planning department who has a PhD in planning and assisted the city of Atlanta, Georgia, and all of the communities there with his role in his district to implement the Phase 1 NPDES stormwater permit. It's an extremely complex process. The reason that in 2003 the request was made to Senator Chesbro was because you knew then you needed to do this now. So that's my suggestion.
I have a question and a comment.
Sure.
First of all, I looked through here. I expected to find Senate Bill 1136.
Oh, sorry. That's at leginfo.com or .gov. No. If you want me to send you the bill, I can.
It's not in here. And that's the bill that actually did create this. Right?
Yes, I can send you copies of it.
No, I can look
Sure.
it up. I just want to make sure I didn't miss it when I looked at it.
No. The actual chaptered bill happened after these documents were created.
And the second, and my comment is, I hear what you're saying, but LAFCo doesn't have the authority to put this district in one department or another. That's something the Board of Supervisors would have to do.
You know, there's a couple of those guys sitting right here. I thought I'd throw it out to you.
I just wanted there not to be any misunderstanding.
I think we need to sponsor a bill that
suggesting that we
have
don't have the authority to do
I know.
that departments.
I do know. I appreciate your tolerance of me.
We can select the city managers and everyone else.
Okay, anyone else? Good. Mike.
Ed, I would comment that I took the entire legislative digest, which is about 280 pages, I believe, or 300 and something pages. 212. And just did this because this has all of the pertinent elements in it. And in terms of the discussion, this bill went to a lot of different committees in the legislative process before it was finally passed.
Right.
This Senate discussion incorporates most of those discussions. That's why I printed these 13 for you kind of as a summary. As relates to LAFCO not getting to tell the county who to assign it to, I would argue that just a little bit, okay? As a member that's spent a year now as part of the municipal service, the Service Review Committee, strike municipal, we do, you know, and this was kind of a surprise, but, you know, we do, and I think we may have an argument with your executive director in terms of what the final language of that service review is, but I think I could speak for the whole committee that we have found that the actions of the county so far have been lacking in terms of their responsibilities for the Watershed Protection District. And LAFCo, you know, using the information that we have gathered for you as the committee, you do have the right and the responsibility to tell the county that you don't think that what's happening is good, and you can make suggestions to them. And, you know, I don't know that it's a little quick to say I support what Betsy just said, but, you know, the bottom line is, I can tell you that we have found that there's a bit lacking.
Okay. Yeah, and suggestions, I want to make sure nobody thought that we had the authority to.
No, but I echo Mike, you do have the ability to make findings.
Well, of course.
Sure. And really, I would not suggest that if I did not think that was a tremendous positive shift that would not be that hard to do within the organization that you have.
Okay, anyone else? All right. Well, I guess that concludes executive officers' report. Commissioner reports. Do you have anything you want to share with us? No? How peaceful and quiet it is in here. Okay. Correspondence.
Oh, excuse me, did you have commissioner reports?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I thought somebody was going to report.
I'm waiting.
No, but okay. Well, then I guess I have a short one. I did attend the Planning Commission, the City of Lakeport's Planning Commission update on the sphere of influence, and there were some interesting things that came out. Basically what the city was looking at, and please step up if I'm saying the wrong thing because this is from my notes, but the thing that the city was looking at was trying to match up the city zoning with the zoning in the South Main Street area, with the zoning that the county already has. And that's in, I think, an attempt to make the thing overlay so that existing zoning would be the same no matter who was managing that area. And the chair had said that this was in the interest of making a good partnership with the county. And let's see if I have anything else. Oh, that there was an intent to propose to hire a consulting firm to prepare a supplemental review using the existing 2009 EIR and then bring it to LAFCo. So I think it's an attempt to get things moving on that sphere of influence so that LAFCo isn't stuck in this holding pattern.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.